Libra, my dear seeker of balance and truth, this message was never random. The universe is not asking Anna Marie, it is moving you. You are being spiritually guided, perhaps even forced, to leave a place behind. Not because you're lost, but because you've outgrown it. Let me ask you something gently but directly. Have you been feeling lately like something's not right? Like your surroundings, but a home, a job, a relationship, or even an identity no longer reflect who you are becoming? That the peace you used to fight for now feels more like a prison than a sanctuary? If you've been sensing those subtle shifts, Libra, it's not just you. That inner nudge you've tried to silence? That ache in your chest when you're in familiar rooms that suddenly feel too small? That's not doubt. That's divine direction. Today's deep reading from Zodiac Whisper Tarot is not here to reassure you that everything will stay the same. It's here to reveal what must change. And more importantly, why this change isn't punishment, it's protection. Your spirit is evolving, and the place you're in, spiritually or physically, can no longer contain your expansion. You're not being rejected. You're being redirected toward the version of you that finally feels like home. And Libra, let me remind you of something the scriptures have whispered for centuries. Every time God prepares someone for a higher path, He begins by moving them. Abraham left everything. Moses left Egypt. Mary and Joseph fled to save what was sacred. So why would your journey be any less sacred now? Take a breath. This isn't the end. This is the beginning of your real life, the one you were born to live but perhaps never felt worthy of claiming. Until now. Let me take a moment to say thank you for being here. Every single like, every comment, every time you hit subscribe, it brings your energy closer to the heart of this channel. You're not just a viewer, you're part of a sacred community that believes in divine timing, soul purpose, and the quiet strength within you. And trust me when I say this, Libra, you will want to stay with me until the final second of today's message. Because what the universe is about to show you will change the way you see everything. So now, my faithful Libra, tell me in the comments below, what number have you been seeing lately? 444? 555? Or maybe 1155? Write it down. That number may be your cosmic confirmation. Also share, what emotion brought you here today? Was it clarity? Frustration? A longing to breathe? Because this message, this exact moment, isn't an accident. It's a spiritual intervention. And today, we are opening the door together. Let's begin. Sometimes, balance comes at a hidden cost, one that Libra knows all too well. Your natural instinct to keep the peace, to maintain harmony, to be the gentle presence in the storm, often leads you into situations where you quietly absorb more than your share. When that balance is forced, when you bend too far just to avoid conflict or to be accepted, it stops being harmony and becomes silent self-erasure. In astrology, Libra is ruled by Venus, the planet of love, beauty, and relationships, but also of value. That's the word I want to sit with you for a moment, value. Not just how much you offer others, but how much of yourself you're still holding sacred. Over time, if you continue giving your presence to people or places that no longer reflect your truth, the scales of Libra begin to tilt. And what starts as gentle compromise turns into quiet suppression. This is how even the most gracious soul begins to fade in spaces they once called home. Energy is not neutral, it is always shaping or shrinking us. And when a Libra remains in an environment where they must dim their light to keep the peace, that energy starts to imprint itself on the nervous system. You begin to wake up tired, your creativity dries up, your smile becomes something you put on rather than something you feel rising from within. That's not failure. That's feedback. It's your body, your spirit, your soul whispering, it's time to move. Not necessarily physically, but energetically, emotionally, spiritually. This is the part where many hesitate. Because leaving the familiar can feel like betrayal. But the greater betrayal is staying too long in a version of your life that no longer mirrors your growth. Growth, by nature, creates discomfort. That discomfort is not a sign that you're doing something wrong. In fact, it might be the most sacred sign that you're doing something profoundly right. Imagine a tree whose roots have outgrown the pot it's been planted in. At first, the pot felt supportive. It gave boundaries, a shape, a foundation. But now those same walls are suffocating what once thrived inside them. This moment in your life, dear Libra, is just like that. The discomfort you feel is not a punishment. It's your roots pressing against the edge of the old container. It's life inviting you to be repotted into something more expansive. I know it's not easy. We live in a world that tells us to be grateful, to not rock the boat, to stay loyal to where we started. But loyalty to your old self cannot come at the cost of your future self. And the truth is, you can be deeply grateful for a space and still outgrow it. You can honor what it gave you and still walk away when it starts to take more than it returns. So here's something gentle to try tonight. Take a few quiet minutes with your journal and ask yourself this: where am I staying small just to make things feel balanced? Who am I trying to please at the expense of my inner clarity? What parts of me are dimming just to keep the room from feeling awkward? Then, with compassion, write down 3 things about your current environment that no longer reflect who you're becoming. Not to judge them, but to acknowledge the truth that your soul already knows. This is how you begin the journey, not with a dramatic leap, but with a quiet act of honesty. And sometimes, that's the miracle. Sometimes, the most divine interventions don't look like lightning bolts from heaven. Sometimes, they look like a still, small moment of recognition: I don't belong here anymore. And just like that, the shift begins. Change, for someone like Libra, often arrives not with chaos but with whispers. Yet even the most graceful soul will eventually reach a threshold, a place where silence becomes heavy and indecision begins to cost more than it protects. You've been listening quietly, haven't you? To that soft, consistent knowing inside you that something must shift. That the calm you've tried so hard to maintain is no longer peaceful, it's stagnant. And though you may still wear your gentleness like a silk robe, something bolder is awakening underneath, the quiet warrior, the version of you that no longer waits for permission to be whole. From an astrological lens, this is where Venus-ruled Libra reveals its deeper essence. While many only associate you with balance and beauty, those who understand the depth of your sign know that true harmony isn't about pleasing everyone. It's about living in alignment with your values, even if that means walking away from a space that once felt safe. Justice is your card, after all, just as much as grace is. And justice doesn't always whisper. Sometimes, it arrives as a shake. Sometimes, it burns down the old so that the truth can breathe again. Many spiritual traditions, not just astrology, reflect this pattern. If you observe stories of transformation from the wilderness wanderings of ancient prophets to the modern-day miracles of those who left behind toxic patterns to start over, you'll notice a theme. The shift doesn't happen until you decide to move. And if you don't move on your own, the universe, in its deep love for your soul's growth, will do it for you. It may come as a breakup you didn't expect, a job loss that shook you, or a sudden knowing that, I just can't be here anymore. At the time, it may feel like abandonment. But over time, you'll recognize it for what it truly was, rescue. Energetically speaking, this is the moment when your spirit can no longer contain itself in a space that was built for an earlier version of you. And that's okay. We don't shame the flower for outgrowing its pot. We simply replant it where the light can reach its petals. And you, Libra, are in need of more sunlight than ever before, not only to feel alive again, but to grow into what you're destined to become. So when you feel that sacred discomfort, that low, aching sense that you're being pushed out, don't resist it. Feel it. Respect it. Let it show you where your energy is no longer received, where your joy feels delayed, where your intuition starts whispering more loudly than your fear. These are not signs that you've failed. These are signals that your soul is in motion. And here's something to remember: leaving doesn't mean you're giving up. It means you're choosing yourself. You're choosing peace that doesn't require performance. You're choosing clarity over comfort, alignment over appearance. You're stepping into the kind of strength that speaks softly but stands tall. If you need an anchor in this process, try affirming this quietly each morning: I am strong enough to walk away from what no longer holds me with love. I don't need permission to be myself fully. Let this become your permission slip, written by your own hand, guided by a higher order that wants nothing more than to see you rooted, radiant, and restored. Growth isn't always loud. Sometimes, it's the calm decision to choose better even if no one claps for it. Even if no one understands it. But one day, you will look back and whisper to the old version of you, thank you for finally choosing to move. There comes a moment, Libra, when your soul no longer asks for a place to hide, it asks for a place to expand. You may have thought you were looking for a new apartment, a new job, or even a new city. But beneath all those changes lies a much deeper longing, a space where you don't have to apologize for who you are becoming. A space where your sensitivity is not a weakness but a gift. A space where your beauty, both inner and outer, is not just seen, but celebrated. This is not about escape. It's about alignment. From an astrological point of view, your ruling planet Venus craves beauty, serenity, and authentic connection. But when Venus is under tension, especially in relation to Uranus or the 4th and 10th house axis, it often indicates that your soul is restless for a space that reflects your new emotional and creative vibration. That's why even the most outwardly stable life can start to feel suffocating if the energetic container around it hasn't evolved with you. What used to feel like comfort now feels like confinement. And you're not imagining that shift, it's real. Your spirit is asking for room to breathe. In numerology, you may have been seeing repeating sequences like 222, 1010, or 55. These are not coincidences. These numbers often appear when a new cycle is trying to enter, but you're still partially anchored in the old. They're gentle nudges from the divine blueprint that say, it's okay to change. It's okay to want more. It's okay to create a life that doesn't just look good but feels sacred. Imagine yourself as a delicate crystal chalice, masterfully crafted, shimmering in the light. You wouldn't store that in a cluttered cabinet behind old jars and forgotten dishes. It belongs somewhere intentional, somewhere bright, somewhere it can be admired, not hidden. And just like that, Libra, you deserve to be in a space that honors the vibration of who you really are, not who you used to be. Creating this kind of environment isn't only about moving cities or switching careers. Sometimes, it's about rearranging what you already have with deeper awareness. Add lavender or olive tones to your space to invite peace and clarity. Open the curtains and let the morning light be your daily anointing. Play music in 432 Hz to calm the nervous system and let your body know, this space is safe now. You are allowed to breathe here. You are allowed to unfold slowly, without pressure. Many people talk about building a dream life, but very few talk about building a dream atmosphere, a space that nourishes your inner rhythm. And you, Libra, are exquisitely tuned to your surroundings. The chaos outside always finds its way inside if you're not careful. That's why your next step isn't just external movement. It's internal restoration. You might not know exactly where you're going yet, and that's okay. Sometimes God doesn't show us the whole map. He just gives us the courage to take the next step. The miracle, more often than not, is not in the destination but in the permission you give yourself to move toward joy. You don't need to explain that to anyone. You don't need validation or consensus. You just need clarity, and you already have that, deep down. So today, start small. Light a candle. Clear a corner. Play a sound that calms your body. Whisper a truth you've been afraid to speak aloud. And remember, your soul isn't asking for perfection. It's asking for space. And in that sacred space, everything begins to bloom. Not every financial drought comes from a lack of effort. Sometimes, it comes from planting your seeds in soil that can no longer nourish you. Libra, you've given your best. You've shown up with grace, worked diligently, poured your heart into situations that felt promising. But when the energy of the environment is misaligned, when the frequency of a place, a job, or even a relationship no longer matches your soul's evolution, abundance doesn't flow the way it's meant to. And no matter how disciplined you are, how thoughtful, how prepared, it can start to feel like the universe has gone silent on your efforts. What's really happening is not rejection. It's redirection. In the language of energy, money flows where resonance lives. Where your values, your gifts, and your intentions are seen, heard, and honored. That's why leaving isn't just an emotional or physical decision, it's an energetic one. When you step away from what quietly dims your light, you open up to places and people who actually reflect it back to you. And that shift, subtle as it may feel at first, is often what cracks the wall holding your financial blessings behind it. In astrology, we look to the movement of the 2nd and 8th houses for insight into material gain, support systems, and value. But what many forget is that these houses don't just speak of money, they speak of self-worth. What we believe we deserve is directly connected to what we allow ourselves to receive. So if you've been in an environment where you constantly had to prove your worth, where your contributions were minimized, where good enough never seemed to be enough, it's no wonder the flow stopped. Spirit doesn't bless what isn't aligned with truth. Now imagine stepping into a space physically or energetically where your ideas are not only welcomed but amplified. Where the same voice that was ignored in the old space is now sought out. where opportunities meet your energy without resistance. That's the power of energetic alignment. That's what's waiting for you on the other side of this release. And it's not just about money though, yes, that too will shift. It's about recognition, reciprocity, and restoration. The Tarot's Six of Pentacles shows a moment of balanced exchange, where giving and receiving flow equally. This is not about begging to be valued. It's about being positioned in a space where value finds you naturally. Where your efforts don't disappear into the void but return to you in meaningful, often miraculous ways. Even in sacred teachings, we see the reminder that when one door closes, the windows of heaven are waiting to open, often with more than you asked for, in ways you didn't expect. Sometimes that overflow is blocked not because you're not worthy, but because you're still anchored to a place that doesn't support the next version of you. Once you let go, the energy unfreezes, and everything begins to move again. So take a moment now, with honesty and compassion, to reflect. Where have you been undervalued? Where have your ideas been stifled? Where have you been too loyal to a structure that stopped serving your future? Then, write down 3 opportunities, big or small, that came to you once you made space for better. And thank them. Gratitude is a frequency that magnifies everything. And if you've been thinking about organizing your finances, starting a savings account, or preparing for change, this is your sign. Not out of fear, but out of empowerment. Not because you're losing, but because you're preparing to receive. When you walk away from misalignment, you walk into overflow. You may not know their name yet. You may not have met their eyes or heard their voice. But somewhere, someone is already being prepared to meet you in the version of yourself you are still becoming. And Libra, that kind of connection, deep, quiet, soul-knowing love, doesn't find you in the middle of survival. It finds you when you choose peace. When you release what was never aligned and finally stop trying to shape yourself into someone else's ideal. There's something tender and extraordinary about the kind of relationship you're now moving toward. It's not performative. It doesn't require perfection. It doesn't ask you to shrink your dreams or silence your truth. It simply sees you. Not just the part of you that's graceful and well-spoken, but the part that's tired of pretending. The part of you that wants to be held without being fixed. This kind of bond doesn't rush. It doesn't chase. It recognizes you, because it's written in the language of resonance. And just like autumn leaves that drift separately only to meet again in the same stream, your souls have always been moving toward one another. You've passed through heartbreak and confusion. You've walked away from love that felt like work, loyalty that felt one-sided, expectations that crushed your gentleness. All of that was not wasted, it was preparation. Every lesson carved a space in your heart for a connection that won't make you earn safety, but offer it freely. From an energetic standpoint, relationships are a mirror of frequency. When you're in survival mode, you attract dynamics that reflect that tension. When you finally breathe again, soften your nervous system, and begin tending to your own emotional garden, you become a match for those who bring water, not fire. That's why this transition you're going through, this leaving, this shift isn't just about a new location or career path. It's about clearing the static that's been keeping this soul connection from landing in your life. You might not be ready to open your heart completely yet. That's okay. Start by being honest with yourself. Take time this week to write in your journal not what you think you should want, but what your heart quietly craves. Do you want laughter that doesn't sting? Do you want silence that feels safe? Do you want love that gives you room to evolve without fear of abandonment? Name it. Writing it down sends a signal to the universe that you are ready to receive not anything, but the right thing. If you feel brave, take it one step further. Write down the name of someone from your past who once held power over your worth, someone whose love left a wound instead of a blessing. Light a white candle, and in a safe, mindful space, burn the paper. As the name turns to ash, speak softly to your own soul, "You are free now." Let that ritual be a doorway to healing, not revenge. You're not punishing Anyayuri, releasing yourself. Sometimes, we wait for a relationship to come fix us. But the ones worth keeping, Libra, are the ones who arrive after you've already begun to restore yourself. And when they do appear, you won't have to explain why you feel so familiar to one another. You'll just know. And this time, you'll be ready not because you became perfect, but because you finally let go of everything that required you to be. And now, Libra, as we close this sacred message together, I want to leave you not with an ending but with a gentle turning point. If you've listened this far, it means your spirit is ready. Ready to walk away from what no longer mirrors your growth, ready to honor the quiet voice inside that's been whispering, "There's more for you." You were not left behind. You were not forgotten. You were chosen to go first. Going first can feel lonely. It can feel like leaving everything behind while no one understands why. But that's the path of those who carry light, those who lead not with noise, but with alignment. And you, Libra, were never meant to live a life of pleasing others at the cost of your own peace. This transition you're in right now, whether it's physical, emotional, spiritual, or all of them at once, is not a punishment. It's a sacred invitation. You're not walking away from something. You're walking toward yourself. Can you feel the shift already happening inside? That moment where your heart softens just enough to let the truth rise. That realization that you no longer need permission to choose yourself. You don't need to prove anything to anyone, not anymore. You don't need to wait for conditions to be perfect, or for someone to say, "You're ready." You are the only one who can claim this next version of your life. You are the voice that says, "Now." So I want to ask you something real. What would happen if, just for today, you trusted that the discomfort you're feeling is divine direction? What if you let go of it with fear, but with faith? What doors might open? What weight might finally fall from your shoulders? What version of you might finally step forward? You don't need to have all the answers. But you do need to be willing to ask new questions. Questions like, what do I truly need from the space I call home? What kind of love am I no longer willing to settle for? What kind of future feels aligned with my soul, not just my survival? If any part of you felt seen in this video, if any part of your heart whispered, "This is me," then I want to invite you to leave a sacred affirmation in the comments below. Write these words, not just for the algorithm but for your own energetic shift. I accept the transformation that the universe has for me, and I trust my divine path. And while you're there, tell me, what is one place, physical or emotional, that you know you're being called to leave behind? And what is one feeling you hope to find in what comes next? Peace, freedom, joy? Write it. Release it. Claim it. Thank you, deeply, for being here. Every like, every comment, every time you subscribe or share this message helps keep this energetic circle alive. It's not just support, it's sacred exchange. Your presence allows Zodiac Whisper Tarot to continue delivering these healing messages to hearts that are searching, just like yours. So stay close. There's more waiting for you. And I promise, Libra, what's coming next? It's worth everything you're walking away from.